How do the Bucks pick up the pieces from here? We revisit a very tough weekend and where the team goes, the positives and the negatives, best case and worst case for this team, coming up next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. My name is Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day, each and every day. And to all of you, the everydayers, anybody that's just stumbling on this show who have helped make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcasting network in the industry. You can hear me on the Bucks radio network each and every game. You can find Camille as part of our Locked On NBA coverage on the Locked On NBA show and the Technical Foul podcast as well. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, then visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. We started with a couple questions, Camille, and I know it's not the way you want to do your cold opens. You want to have an authoritative statement here, and this is what we're going to dig into. We start with questions because, quite frankly, we have more of those than we have answers about this Bucks team. Injuries have been a big piece of this. You know, I think we all came in at the Bucks hitting the over on their win total, which is still attainable. Like, to go to 43 wins, you'd have to go 33-24 the rest of the way. I would say that's certainly doable if you're going to be healthy, but that's a big if for reasons we'll continue to get to. But the biggest one is obviously your superstar. And I think we got a little bit of insight from Doc, potentially the organization as well, before Friday's game against the Sixers. So when you saw the 2 to 4 week timeline, what did you think was the realistic timeline, date, however you want to put it? Like, okay, that's what they're telling me that he's going to be out. When did you think he'd make his return?
It's like at least a month. I was like, it has to be on the longer edge of that 2 to 4 week window. Like, I know Giannis has the super healing powers. We've seen him come back very quickly from various injuries. But we have seen how the league itself has been a lot more cautious when it comes to calf injuries, because calf injuries can lead to Achilles injuries, and you don't want that type of injury for any player, especially not a franchise guy. So take your time with that rehab. Make sure he's 100% when he comes back. The thing with that, though, is that he's played 17 games to date. Missing a month here. Luckily, this week for the Bucks, it's only like 2 games over next week because of the NBA Cup. So that kind of helps. But you start crunching numbers, and it's like, well, if you're looking at award season, it might start getting tough for Giannis to hit that 65-game benchmark.
Yeah, I think it's a wrap. Because I agree with you. I assumed it was going to be a month. Doc's comment to Friday was, I think he said, if I had to guess, it would be closer to the 4 weeks than 2. But did note, like, I've heard from Giannis, he's in good spirits, and I know Giannis. I know he's already told me, like, hey, I think I can be back in a week or 2 weeks. Leaving all the off the court stuff out of it, because that will factor in as well with Giannis individually and his camp. I just think you have to see, okay, can we start to find some things? For as much as Doc loves to point at the silver lining, can we start to find a silver lining here and piece together, this is the way we have to play? And I know there's a massive difference in the comparison I'm going to make, but kind of like last year when, Dame went down and it was, okay, we have to anticipate we're not going to have him. So let's find how we're going to play in the short term, potentially long term. The major difference is you still had one superstar on the floor in Giannis, and vice versa the year prior when Giannis went down. Like, okay, here's how we can fit this around Dame. There are some components to that. It took another blow Friday when AJ Green suffered a shoulder contusion. He missed the game against the Pistons. We have not seen any further updates from there. We will not see any further updates until at least Tuesday afternoon, because Doc gave the team off. They flew back from Detroit Saturday night. These are 2 off days, Sunday and Monday, and said we'll practice Tuesday, Wednesday. we're not going to practice until afternoon on Tuesday. And even said, that way the guys can get out of town. If they want to go out of town and do something, clear their heads, and then we come back to 2 days of practice. We don't know, right? But it's the non-shooting shoulder. That's the good thing. But Doc also said after the game, didn't really look good for AJ.
Yeah.
And like, we'll wait to see further testing. But yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, that's a big blow for this Bucks team because AJ Green was, top 5 in 3-point makes, top 5 in 3-point percentage. I think he was leading the league in 3-point percentage actually for qualified shooters. So that's a tough blow, especially now without Giannis, who's not a floor spacer, but now you're depending a lot more on Jericho Sims and Kyle Kuzma. We saw Andre Jackson Jr.
That's a bad thing offensively.
I'm just saying you need your shooters are a premium for real premium in those particular lineups. So losing an AJ Green and his gravity, especially for a team that had a goal of, shooting more threes, even though they haven't gotten to that goal so far this season, but to shoot more threes, and without AJ, your best 3-point shooter, it makes it a little bit more difficult, makes the spacing a little bit more tight for the team. But one thing that they have during this upcoming stretch of Giannis-less games that they didn't have during the last one is at least Kevin Porter Jr. Will be on the court. And what we've seen from him this weekend in particular, where it's like, you're the guy right now, KPJ, go for it. He's walked right into that role. And he has done a very, very good job in it. Like the turnovers were a thing against Philly, cleaned that up against the Pistons, and he's very aware of it. Like he understands what's being asked of him in this team. And I think for the guys in general, again, I talk about reasons and excuses, but it's been a lot of different guys who are now being asked to play a role that they did not envision for themselves coming into the season with Giannis out. So there has been an adjustment for that. And the hope is that, man, can you guys string together just enough games in a row to kind of tread water until the superstar does come back?
So KPJ is certainly worthy of a larger conversation, which we'll get into here. The last thing you mentioned too about, can you string enough wins together to kind of tread water here? That's going to be the interesting thing, because at some point there's going to be an organizational decision too of what's the best route for this team. That's not happening now. I talked about this a little bit on the radio post-game show, I think after Friday against the Sixers. You don't make the decision to, and I hesitate to even use the term, but you don't make the decision to tank and pull the plug in December.
No, it's too early.
Philly last year, it wasn't made until like late January of like, okay, we gave this, 2 full months, more than that, 2.5, 3 full months. It's just not going to work. Paul George and Embiid aren't going to be healthy. We've already put ourselves in too big of a spot. Theirs too was the first round pick, and the protections that were on it kind of forced their hand. The Bucks have no protections on their first round pick. There is a swap, but thankfully the other team that's tied into the swap has the worst record in the league. So there's no real danger there of what if things do continue to go off the rails here and you miss the playoffs. We're giving up a really good draft pick. That's not going to be the case, but December's still too early. We had said a couple of times, you'll get your answer in December. I didn't envision it to come this way, but that even more so rings true now if we are to assume Giannis is in all likelihood missing the rest of the month of December, and that plays into what you brought up as well about the individual awards and that recognition for Giannis. So Kevin Porter Jr., what we've seen from him now in basically every single game that he's played in this season with the Bucks. We'll dig into that, what you can really find there. Are there any looming dangers or things you want to keep an eye on? And, what it means for the offseason. Still too early to have that conversation fully, but we can at least hint at what this could potentially set up. We'll get into that conversation coming up next here on Locked On Bucks. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. That's why you have Robinhood, with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. You channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood's advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, so expect more from your money. Get started today at robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. We mentioned it before, Camille, but you already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. You can join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Bucks with no interruptions, members only, Discord access, and more, all just for $5 a month or $50 a year. Find more on the URL on the show description for this episode here. So, Camille, Kevin Porter Jr. has been the bright spot, and I know we've talked about Ryan Rollins. That's not to take away from what you've found in Ryan Rollins. Like, when we talk about the future for this team, you've got Ryan Rollins and AJ Green under contract. And, I saw somebody mentioning like what this team is facing this summer. And the discussion has already started to take place on Reddit and elsewhere of like, can they even afford Kevin Porter Jr. if he opts out? Like, yes, it's a different cap situation. Now, they're not great. They're not going to be like a cap space team like they were this past year to sign Miles Turner. But you're not hardly pressed up against the second apron anymore, or with very little wiggle room. If he does opt out, it's either the, what I think 175% of what he's currently making, you can give him in a raise, or 105% of what the average is at his position, which would be a higher value as a point guard. So with your early bird rights, you can keep him. I would guess if he continues to play like this, we just probably see another 1+1, and then you have full bird rights the next summer, and he can make even more money. But the positives for now are, look, you've found money in AJ Green a couple of years ago, and now you've turned that into a very, very solid player. Even if there's a segment that disagree about his defense, you have a solid player in AJ Green, and a very budget-friendly contract too, to get that type of production for what, $10-11 million a year. Ryan Rollins, you're going to have to extend down the road, but you have him on an incredible deal for $4 million for the next 2 years. And now potentially Kevin Porter Jr. I mean, even if that jumps up, I still wonder what it would jump up to in a worst case scenario, because it takes two to tango. So there has to be another team that has that amount of money and says, we are investing this in Kevin Porter Jr., versus another player that fits a more specific need for that team, or versus just keeping the ink dry and saying, well, why don't we just wait until the summer of 2027 when there are a lot more free agents expected to hit the market? So I still think there's a great chance you retain him, and he's probably making around the mid-level figure next year. But if that's the trio that you have here in KPJ, Ryan Rollins, and AJ Green on those deals, where it's not max, it's not in that middle portion of it either. It's mid-level and lower. And then if you still have Giannis, along with potentially a really good draft pick, as we've said, the summer opens things up with being able to trade draft picks. I'd probably hit the brakes on that for now. But one expiring deal, another deal that becomes a 1+1 after that you could trade. So there is an avenue of some things here, but we've said for a while, you got to get younger, you got to get more athletic, and they've started to move in that direction. But it really feels like if things keep going the way it is 25 games into the season, this is a massive opportunity to get even younger, even more athletic, and bring in some blue chip talent in what is a very highly regarded draft class this summer.
A very highly regarded draft class this summer, to the point where I've been looking at the Bucks record a bit, and I'm like, man, Giannis is out. I don't normally watch a lot of college basketball, but I said, let me just peruse what's going on over here. But Seriously though, I
How
think
casual are you? So casual to the fact of like Boozer? That's not Carlos Boozer's kid, is
no,
it?
I'm very,
Okay.
very aware of the children of
The
NBA
kids, yeah,
superstars I
yeah,
watched when I was growing up. Like when I saw Peja Stojakovic's son is in college, I was like,
yeah.
what is happening right now? But
Well,
no, I
even
mean,
Jabari Walker over the weekend, like
no,
Jabari.
yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's Samaki Walker's
And you're just
kid.
like, how? But and that's one thing my uncle Michael had told me. He's like, you'll know you're getting older when you start
Oh
seeing
God.
the kids of athletes you watch growing up play.
Step one is like, which hit us all. Well, I'll speak for me, Camille. This came like 15 or more years ago. When you're watching it, you're like, wait a minute. I'm the same age as this guy, or like this
Yeah,
guy's 2
yeah.
years younger than me. Now, when you start to see the kids, is when you're like, oh wow, okay,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a real surreal feeling. So for all the younger fans out there listening, your day will come. Your day will come. But no, I mean, look, this might end up being one of those seasons where I want to say I still do think it's a chance for the Bucks here to put together 45, 46 wins, but they need the health and everything like that. But in the meantime, in between time, I think like a silver lining for me is just kind of seeing these younger players get these opportunities to be in these roles because we saw it earlier with Ryan Rollins when Kevin Porter Jr. was out and just how much was put on his plate. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But that's the thing with young players. You have to just afford them the opportunity to make mistakes in real time. You only get better with the game reps. And even Kevin said that about Ryan, where he's like, I was in that situation myself. Like, I know what it's like. So go out there and just play, do what you can do. Um, and now with Kevin back, and Ryan trying to reestablish his role, figure things out there. I think it could be good for that backcourt too, just to
yeah,
get their time playing
yeah,
together, understanding that because Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. really could be the backcourt of the future for the Milwaukee Bucks. You throw AJ Green in there, and I know that the size thing, just KPJ is the tallest of the three of them. Actually, he's 6'5".
yeah.
Rollins is like 6'3", AJ 6'4", so they're all like size, but that's a good group to kind of start building around. And honestly, I don't know what the future is going to be for Kyle Kuzma, but while Giannis is out, I need to see the Kyle Kuzma that we saw against Detroit. I need very active cutting,
Yeah.
pushing it in transition, getting to the basket. Now, all the results when he gets to the basket, it's better than it was last year, but sometimes he still leaves a little foul money there. But he has to push the point, like he has to between Kuz and Kevin Porter Jr.
Yeah.
and Ryan Rollins. Those are like your three players without Giannis that can really consistently touch paint, and you need those guys to do that. You need guys to try to draw fouls. Kevin Porter Jr. has come back. I believe he's averaging a career high in the free throws, or tied for a career high in free throw attempts right now, which is like 4.5. Just little things. There are things that this team has been bad at, like fouling, like getting to the free throw
We
line,
can list a
like
lot. Yeah.
rebounding. Like, can we start to see some improvements in some of these areas on the margin that they've been bad at? Like, I was kind of encouraged over the weekend with how often they found themselves at the free throw line. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
again, it wasn't like it was anything crazy, but it's a lot better than seeing them only get there 7 times or anything like that. So
Right.
just the little steps right now is like, just try to tread water, try to improve on some things, try to get that defense going and just see what you can do.
Yeah, I mean, you got to move off ball, like
Yeah.
especially now
Yeah.
when you don't have Giannis as that magnet and the guy that's just going to draw in everything and create those looks. Like and it's as plain as day. Doc has talked about it. We've seen it with our eyes when they're just swinging the ball around the perimeter without that force that is Giannis. This is a very easy offense to defend, and that's where they kind of struggle. You have to get going and get downhill, and it's why I mentioned, before, I get it. There's been a lot of complaints about the whistle and about all the
Mhm.
reporting that's going on, outside noise, as we've heard Doc and others term it. We saw another Instagram post from Giannis too over the weekend, which, like, at this point,
He's
I don't know,
trolling.
maybe just stay off of it or come out and make a definitive statement. One of the two. But look, I don't think any of the outside reporting is completely fabricated. Yes, we've seen some of the talking walked back a little bit. I assume there's some discourse going on behind the scenes from sources that are probably reaching out and saying, well, actually, this didn't happen, but like that type of thing that would lead to, okay, there wasn't a trade request, but there has been a lot of smoke to this. What I would say is let's maybe pause on the, well, Shams is a scam artist and this is all made up and ESPN wants to get Giannis out of this market into a bigger market. Like, I know we've dealt with this a long time. I get that. It's also been very tedious and up in the air the previous times, if we are being honest. It took a trade for Drew Holiday. It took a trade for Dame Lillard for extensions to be signed here. I still think Giannis is telling the organization, like, give me a reason to leave versus give me a reason to stay. And again, like, if you're bad this year, I don't know that means, well, that's it, it's over. There is a way that you could spin it with what we just said of Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins and AJ Green and potentially a really good player, especially at a position of need. There's a lot of bigger guards and small forwards in this draft. If you can find one of those guys and say, we think he's an impact player, he slots in next to you, next to these two guys, one of them comes off the bench and we still have Miles Turner. Now we like what we're cooking with here. But we got to see how the season unfolds here to play out. And the same thing with, all the other metrics of Bucks are getting a terrible whistle. The officials have it out for him. They're trying to get Giannis out of Milwaukee. I will admit there has been a very questionable whistle at times.
Man.
But I take that as a couple of things. Number one, you have young, unproven players on your team who are just not going to get that whistle. And secondly, it's the way you play the game. We've heard a number of times from players out there. Drew Hanlon as well, who trains the superstars, has talked about this and said, my message to my guys is always play aggressively, get towards the basket, and then embellish it and sell it. That's how you're going to get calls. The Bucks don't play that way. And that was always one of the knocks on, you think back to Charles Barkley and being anti-Warriors of like jump shooting teams don't win the title and can't win in the playoffs because of this, right? Because you're not going to generate free throws. I know fouled threes and fouled jump shots are up at a level higher this year than it's ever been since we've tracked it. But still, the easiest way to get to the free throw line is get into the paint, attack the basket, and play aggressively. And that has not been the style we have seen consistently from the Bucks. So they're not getting calls on that end because of that. They're not getting the benefit on the defensive end because they're small and undersized. And the same type of things where the opponent knows we can get into the paint against this team and be the aggressors, and they're being rewarded with free throws. You mentioned it. We've seen it improve for the Bucks. There is one unfortunate thing, though, that has kind of hung over this team where all the margins we've addressed they have to win on, they're cleaning those up. But now you have two injuries to deal with, and that's been the biggest change that we've seen. So more on that, just because we're gluttons for punishment here. I also took a look at the simulator of the lottery, Camille.
Boy.
So I know. So we'll get into that conversation coming up after this. Time to talk to you about our friends now over at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. You get a receiver getting hot, a defense that's tightening up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown, scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast. Now, so can you. All right. You got to win on the margins, which stating the obvious here, correct? The challenge for the Bucks has been this. We mentioned free throws. That's been an issue. You're not getting them. you're fouling too much. It started to stabilize over the weekend, and really beyond that, for the last 4 or so games, I would say it has started to stabilize. Turnovers, again, I think the biggest misconception with this team is they're just bad at protecting the ball. They're not.
No,
They're in the upper half of the
they're top
league,
10 still,
maybe.
right?
Yeah, I didn't check
Maybe
after.
right outside top 10.
Yeah, I know. Like at worst, they're in the upper half. They're close to top 10. But when it's bad, it's really bad. And the opponents are scoring off of it too because of your transition defense. There's just been a lot about the defense that has been a big disappointment so far this season. For everything we talked about coming in of like, look, you lack this, this, and this, but Miles will allow you to do things a little bit differently. You still got Giannis and those two protecting the ball. No personal digs at Damian Lillard here, but you have better, more equipped defensive players in the backcourt than you did previously, and it has been nowhere near good enough. They've started to dig in a little bit, but you haven't seen it consistently. And then the offensive rebounds, defensive for the Bucks, offensive for the opponent, that continues to be a major problem. And we are seeing, some of these areas have improved rather dramatically, but unfortunately, if you are going to be playing without Giannis and without your best shooter in AJ Green, you probably, I think, would say you have to win all of those categories, or at least keep it close and hang tough. And for the last, 3-4 games, they've done so in 2 of the 3. But the glass is still an issue, and that ultimately is going to be the number one deterrent to this defense ever getting to where you need it to be. And if that stays the same, 10 and 15 is going to get worse, especially once you get into that West Coast trip early in January. All of a sudden, I said, hey, actually not a bad draw with your 2 games that were added to have Boston at home and the Nets on the road. Now, who knows with the way that Boston is playing. If that doesn't get adjusted, it is going to get worse. And I don't know how you improve the rebounding, right? Because it's also funny that we had a large contingency, or at least a very vocal contingency of fans that were very, very adamant, you got to play Jericho Sims more. And, I would agree from the minutes you were seeing him earlier in the season, but then you get into this period now where you don't have Giannis and you don't have AJ Green, and you hear like, why are we playing Jericho and this guy? Like, how are we going to score? Like, well, that's unfortunately where you're at right now. So it's, do you want to be able to score at will, or do you want to try to win some of those margins and keep it competitive?
It's tough. You wish the answer could be do both, like get the margins and be
little column A, little column B.
Yeah, like can we get a little bit of both? But I think that during this stretch of time too, because you laid out the case perfectly, I think it's going to be a bit more too on the coaching staff to try to find those right levers to play. Because I understand that spacing is going to be a problem. We saw a few lineups over the weekend where I was like, ooh, that's a tough one. Like there was like a Ryan Rollins, Andre Jackson Jr., Kyle Kuzma, Jericho Sims, Bobby Portis lineup. And I was like, I get that. I get the situation with, AJ being out, with Giannis being out,
like,
without touring.
We better win points per possession like 0.75 to 0.05.
That's a tough shooting spacing lineup to throw out there on the floor. And even sometimes I'm like, where's Miles Turner's at? Like over the weekend, there were a few times where I was like, a little surprised at how long it's taken him to get back into the game. So
I want to save that for tomorrow's show, because I think that's a larger conversation about Miles Turner in general, certainly the usage, but what we've seen from him, like that's more than a segment on the show. So we will discuss that. But to your point, to see, I know it's not quite this, but as we noted at the time too, with the signing, you basically tie Dame's stretch level to Miles's contract.
Yeah.
And you do have to quit. Like, are we aligned here? If you've invested with that in mind, basically $50 million per year in Miles Turner, and we're going large stretches of these games in the fourth quarter where he's not playing and not closing games. And again, I'm not like trying to compare the two, but you've invested far more in Miles Turner. And I think because of the two-way aspect, Miles Turner has a greater chance of being more impactful than Bobby Portis, who you're playing over him. Like, that has certainly raised some eyebrows for a lot of Bucks fans, and it should.
Yeah, and that's on the coaching staff for that, where it's like you're already shorthanded, but let's try to put out lineups that can make some sense. Let's try to highlight some of the guys, like even Miles Turner, like his usage, like you said, it's a whole different
Yeah.
episode that it deserves, but we've seen him like in the Miami games, one that stands out to me. Even I think over the weekend too, where when he's aggressive and he is really looking for a shot, one, he can get to the free throw line himself, but you just need another guy to be aggressive and go and get those buckets. And I feel like Miles Turner could be highlighted a bit better. So, yes, the guys on the court need to do their job. You need to make sure you're boxing out, getting rebounds, stop fouling, try to get all the things, but also the coaching staff. Like, we have to figure out some different ways of going about it because we don't need lineups that are that handicapped. And again, I understand it's a short-handed roster, but there's got to be some better combinations than some of the things that we've seen thrown out this weekend.
All right. We are going to talk quite a bit about Miles Turner. So leave your thoughts, leave your questions, leave your comments on this show, and we will get to it on tomorrow's show because there's a lot to dissect. What we've seen from him, his play, some of the shot selection and profile this year versus what the Bucks fans became painfully aware of in those two Indiana series and all the games that they've played against the Pacers the last 2 years. And certainly the usage, right? So we'll get into all of that on tomorrow's show as we start to wrap here. So what, the Bulls lost again, right? So the Bulls and Bucks are just right now in this seemingly hold my beer off of like who's gonna miss the play-in tournament. The Bulls have lost 7 in a row, and these two teams are moving in the same direction. They're both 2-8 in their last 10 games. It's not really injuries for the Bulls. It's just kind of coming back to earth because they were was it 6-1 to start the season? So 3-13 since then. And the Bucks 4-1. So 6-14 since then. So the Bulls lose again on Sunday, meaning you once again leapfrog them by a half a game and move into 10th in the Eastern Conference. But as we sit here, there are 11 teams in basketball right now that have a worse record than the Bucks. I'm frankly shocked it's that many, honestly, because at this point, up until that Bulls loss, when you were 11th, the reality and what's going to start to make it pretty late, pretty early in the season, as I keep saying that, is, as of Sunday before that Bulls game went final, you were 11th in the East, and you were closer in the standings, looking only at loss column because that's what matters more. You were closer to the last place Wizards than you were to the Miami Heat, who were the first team outside of the play-in tournament. So that's why we say, like, this is starting to become now or never for this group. But with that in mind, and, we saw more reporting over the weekend that the Bulls are going to try to compete, and they might be buyers at the deadline to try to make the playoffs. I see that, Camille, and I just say, thank you. Like, please do that. Charlotte, catch fire and start to play better, because I'm not even saying the Bucks should tank and get there yet. As we said, it's too early, but like, all right, let's just at least get teams playing better. Hopefully the Bucks can do the same as well. If not, well, then it certainly makes things interesting in a month or so. So of course, I went to our friends at Tankathon and I fired up the draft simulator.
Where we at, Justin?
The first one I did would be like, you know what? I'll take this. The first one had the New Orleans Pelicans winning the lottery, getting the number 1 pick, which of course would then go to the Atlanta Hawks.
Crazy, yeah.
But the Bucks finishing 4th in the lottery. Look, ideally, if you're the Bucks, if you are drafted in a position where Caleb Wilson of North Carolina, AJ DeBonsa, I think would be a perfect one. Darren Peterson too, just guys with size that can play on the perimeter. That's what you're looking for. But like 4, okay, we can work with that. Now, every simulation I've done since then, it should have just been stop the count, because the Bucks are routinely coming in at around 12 or so. But let's just keep an eye on that, because if you're going to be hovering around 11, 12, 13, I know the players are competitors. This decision is made at a level higher than them. And if that's what you're looking for in a month or so, you're going to start to look around and say, like, well, what if we could drop that down 2 or 3 slots? And our base here is 8, 9, 10. And if we win the lottery, we could jump up even further. So with as loaded as this draft is, that is going to be an inevitable conversation, especially knowing it's probably 3 more weeks that you're playing without Giannis.
Yeah, and this could be a situation too for the Bucks where maybe they don't finish, near the top of that list. I mean, but I wouldn't want them to, but I would, it's that weird. I want them.
Well,
to
that's the pick your poison too, because
yeah,
look, either you're going to get a really good draft pick,
in a really good
the
draft.
Hawks are going to get like the number 2 or number 3 pick, or they're not, and you're not.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that I'm kind of hoping, like, hey, maybe if the Bucks just go about business the right way this season, you go out there, you try to win games. If it doesn't work out, maybe the basketball gods smile in your favor and you end up jumping in the lottery yourself. I mean, we haven't seen the worst team get the best pick in the draft since they moved to this new format. So, hey, who knows? But like you said earlier, it's still a little bit too early for us to go down this route in further detail. But
something
honestly, to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, we're honestly 5 to 6 weeks away from really saying, okay, this is what we're going to have to do. But we will definitely keep an eye on it throughout the course of this season, which none of us anticipated. Well, none of you, me or Frank, anticipated this season. Tomorrow, we're going to dig into Miles Turner. So your takes, your thoughts, your questions about Miles, his usage, anything, leave those in the comments or hit up me and Camille as well. But that'll be coming your way tomorrow. That'll do it for today's show. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.